Scorpia is one of the easiest bosses in the game, but because of one of the mechanics, at least 79 magic is recommended to be able to cast Entangle. Other than that, the only other stats that are required is at least 43 prayer in order to use protection prayers. Now these are in theory the best items that you can use for Scorpia, but Scorpia has almost no magic defense at all, meaning you can wear practically anything you want, even melee or range items, and still hit the boss with magic. And since the boss is in high level wilderness, in a multi-combat area, you really want to risk as little as possible. Now we're not going to be skulled, so you won't lose your 3 most valuable items, and to make sure you don't accidentally skull, go into your settings and then in the controls tab, tick the PK skull prevention option. For your gear, I recommend either Thammer and Scepter if you don't mind risking a little bit more GP, because if you use that and you get killed by a PK, whilst you don't lose the staff itself, if it's one of your 3 items that you're protecting, you do lose the ether inside, and you need a minimum of 1000 ether to charge it, and usually you're going to have 2,000 to 3,000 in there, which is a couple of 100k. So if you don't want to use that, you can use the Trident of the Swamp, another good weapon, which is only slightly less DPS and less risk. Now for your other 2 protected items, you want to pick items that increase your magic damage, such as the Occult, which is pretty cheap and gives you a 5% magic damage boost, Eladenis' Ward, a Mage Book, a Mage Arena 2 cape, and so on. And that is because magic accuracy isn't that important, as any of the 3 items that you pick for the magic damage is also going to give you enough magic accuracy where you literally hit the boss almost every single time anyway, no matter what else you wear with it. After that, you just want some good cheap PvP gear like Black D-Hide, a Helm of Nature's Knot, and some climbing boots, or if you want to reduce your risk even further, you can just bring the 3 magic items that increase your magic damage, and wear some Monk's Robes for some prayer bonus, reducing your risk to about 100,000 GP when you're killing the boss. For your inventory, you're going to want some anti-venom, a lockpick, a knife, a looting bag if you have one, but it's not necessary if you don't, a couple of stamina potions just while you're learning the boss, 100 to 200 blighted entangled sacks if you have between 79 and 81 magic whilst being on the standard spellbook, or even better 100 to 200 blighted ice sacks if you have 82 plus magic and access to ancients. You also want to buy some blighted manta rays, Sarah brews, blighted Quran wands and blighted super restores and set your inventory out like this. What this does is it allows you to combo eat all of these foods in under 0.6 seconds by clicking on the manta, then the brew, and then the Quran one in quick succession, which could save your life if you get a team on you. To get to the boss, you want to use the edge of a lever to deep wilderness, slash the web and run east to any of these caves here. And the reason for the lockpick is it's the only real chance you have of escaping if you go into the axe hut over here, because to enter it you need a lockpick, which PKs are unlikely to have on them. However, that being said, if a team of 3 or more PKs turn up, you're very likely to die regardless, so your best bet is just to take as little risk as possible to this boss, and if you get a valuable drop, just bank it straight away as well. For the plugins, there are a couple that you can use. Since your main concern is PKs, you can either use the Wilderness Player Alarm, which makes your screen flash as soon as another player is nearby, or if you think you'd find that quite annoying, you can also use Player Indicators, which highlights players by putting names above their head in the game as well as on the mini-map, just to make spotting PKs a little bit easier before they come into range. Lastly, you want to make sure you've got Menu Entry Swapper installed, which you should automatically have anyway with Runelight, but just check to make sure you've got it. The reason for that plugin is in Scorpia's cave there are a ton of small scorpions, but there are 2 in particular that spawn when Scorpia gets below 50% health and they heal her up. They're quite difficult to click on sometimes, so to see them more easily, shift and right click on either one of them and then select Tag All, which will highlight them in future. For the fight itself, you want to enter the cave protecting from range and then start off by freezing the boss or entangling the boss in place. You then want to use the staff's built-in spell to attack the boss normally whilst moving away to the maximum distance that you can whilst attacking the boss, and this is because the boss is going to become unfrozen at some point, in which case you have to wait another second or 2 before you can freeze it in place again. When the boss gets just below half health, it will summon 2 guardians which will heal her up for more damage than you're going to be able to do, so you're forced to deal with them, and the best way to do that is to freeze them in place, just as Scorpia is about to become unfrozen. Now it'll take a while to get the timer of that down, but whilst you're learning, just freeze them in place and don't worry about Scorpia's damage, the max hit is only 16 anyway, and once both of the guardians are frozen in place or entangled, you then run far away from them and Scorpia will follow you over to the new area, and you can freeze her in place and start attacking her again. Now the Guardians will despawn if they can't heal Scorpia for just under 15 seconds, so it's extremely important that you take Scorpia quite far away so that you have the entangle time as well as the time it would take them to get over to Scorpia, which is definitely going to be enough to make them despawn, because otherwise this boss becomes a real pain if you don't deal with the Guardians properly. And that is really the only mechanic that you need to worry about. Once they're dead, it's as simple as freezing Scorpia in place and attacking her from distance, where she can't do anything to you until you defeat the boss. The bigger problem, of course, is PKs, and it's much more difficult if you see any, in which case make your way over to the nearest exit and head over to that axe cut that I mentioned before. Drink your brews when you're taking a small amount of damage, and combo beat anytime that you take a lot. The reality is, a big team, well, there's not really much you can do about it, but if there's just 1 or 2 PKs, you should be able to make it quite comfortably. Either way, you're not risking that much anyway, and Scorpia doesn't really drop a lot of high value loot either. For the combat achievements, the boss has 4 different ones. The first, Guardians No More, is to kill Scorpia without defeating any of the Guardians. However, using the tactic that I've just mentioned will automatically complete this one for you, as the Guardians despawning is not classed as killing them. Scorpia Adept and Veteran's obviously just a case of killing her enough times. And finally, the last one, I Can't Reach That, requires you to kill the boss without taking any damage at all. Now with protection from range on the entire fight, the only thing that can damage you is the boss, which you're going to be periodically freezing in place anyway, meaning it can't hit you either. That being said, you might not get the achievement on the first few kills, but once you've got the time and mastered of freezing the Guardians just before the boss becomes unfrozen, it's really simple to do and you'll get it in no time. I'm going to be doing a guide for every single boss this year, including the combat achievements, so if you want to get a Zuck Helm with me this year, you know what to do.